Angus Gill won his first Golden Guitar this year for Bush Ballad of the Year, but I think it's been in the works for a while that he's due a Golden Guitar because his output is prodigious and it includes his most recent album, The Scrapbook. And he has a new EP of Christmas songs called The Gilly Season, which I'm semi-obsessed with. So we're going to talk about that. Hi, Angus.
Hey Sophie, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. I was going to leave this question till later on, but I have to start with it. The very first line on The Gilly Season is, when you hear Bublé in the IGA, that rhyme, I just love it. It's like, because it's true for one thing, and also I was just like, who thinks to rhyme Bublé with IGA? Anyway, please tell me how that
Clearly,
came
it
about.
was me. Well, that was a bit of an afterthought because I had another line. I think that line originally was something else. I can't remember what it was. When you I can't remember what it was, but the challenge with coming up with a Christmas EP was trying not to have too much of an overlap of subjects and ideas. And there was another song I wrote on the album called Mistletoe that had, I think there was a similar idea or something in that was in the opening line of that song. And then I thought of that just as kind of, I thought I'll have to change that opening line to Cheapskate Christmas. And Cheapskate Christmas almost didn't make it on the EP, I thought, because that was another thing. I always liked that song, but I was kind of like, oh, it's this similar feel to one of the other songs. So I was trying to kind of find a bit of an edge for it in terms of feel too. So that was one of the challenges among many of coming up with a new kind of fresh Christmas EP, was trying to not to get too much overlap with the subjects and the ideas and kind of the angles as well. So yeah, when you hear Bublé in the IGA was kind of something that I was sitting up in bed one night and I thought, oh yeah, that's it. Okay, there we go. You know.
Well, and you talk about that song having an edge. Another line is, she'll give blood to get free cookies. And of course, the
Yeah.
free cookies are to go on the Christmas table. And I also heard that and thought, oh my God, like that I could totally, it was so vivid. It's such a vivid line because you immediately get what it means. But
Yeah.
it's also, yes, there's an edge there. And I just thought, what goes on in Angus Gill's mind that even comes up as an idea?
She'll give blood to get free cookies, but she won't have a taste. And my favourite line, they'll be sitting on the table on last year's Christmas paper plate.
Very vivid.
So no, that idea. There's this American TV show called Extreme Cheapskates, and I kind of got a few of the ideas for this song after watching a Christmas episode of Extreme Cheapskates. But it's also inspired by my dear Nan, who unfortunately we lost this year. But every time, she would come around to our house on Christmas Day with this big sack of gifts, and she'd dole them out like some warped Mrs. Claus, and we were just sitting there, we're so excited, we'd be seeing she'd give us all these gifts, and one by one they'd come out and we'd start to unwrap them, and all you could see on our faces was disappointment.
Oh,
you know and I was just thinking, oh, surely there'll be a good gift in there, but there never was. It was the biggest anticlimax of our lives. And she'd always give us like pencils that she'd picked up at the tourist information centre in Karratha, or or Chinchilla, or some obscure outback town that her and Pop had been through with the caravan in tow, and anything else that she'd picked up was just from the $2 shop or the reject shop or something. She went in there just to kind of make up the numbers.
She probably thought the pencils were educational, doll.
Yeah, well, she did, and she used to give me these, and it was very cute of her. She used to get me these little golden fiddles, and she thought they were golden guitars, because she always wanted me to get a golden guitar. And unfortunately, we lost her in February, and so if the awards went ahead in January, she would have seen me get my first golden guitar. But it wasn't to be. But I'm sure wherever she is, she would have been able to see that amazing moment in when it happened. So she would have been looking down very fondly. So,
and of course your album The Scrapbook was named for the scrapbook that she kept about you.
Yeah. It certainly was. You know, she was a big part. She was my number one fan. She would go around and sell all my CDs to all of her friends and associates. She even sold CDs to a gynecologist. So that's saying something. And she was a real wheeler and dealer. She was. She could sell ice to Eskimos. She could sell dead dogs to a pet store.
Well, it clearly worked because you got that golden guitar. She helped foster your
Exactly.
career, but also there
Golden
is a track.
fiddle,
Sorry,
whichever
what was
way
that?
you interpret it. I said golden guitar or golden fiddle,
Phil,
whichever
that's
way
true.
you interpret it.
That's true. But also, one of the tracks on the EP is First Christmas Without You, which I imagine is about her. So she's still in your music very much.
Yeah, she is, and that song was actually written a couple of years ago. Actually, it would have been 2020, because we lost my other grandma on the other
Oh.
side of the family, Vera Gill, and she was also, big fan of my music, and she was a big fan of country music. Actually, I grew up kind of always raiding her CD collection. You know, Graham Connors and John Williamson, Slim Dusty and Alan Jackson, and Jim Haynes, and uh, she was a big fan of country music, so
Mhm.
I'm actually very grateful. I never would have thought as a kid, seeing a Graham Connors CD or a Jim Haynes CD or John Williamson, that I'd get to be able to work with these people, or be friends with them. So it's amazing what life, the journey life takes you on.
Well, I think especially when you put in the work, and you have been diligently working towards this since childhood, actually, because there's a photo I saw of you. I think you're about 7 at the microphone with your guitar, and you were performing, and clearly to get to that point, you'd already been playing guitar for a long time. So yes, these golden guitars, things like that, they don't come from nowhere, and
No.
you are still very young. But I was serious when I said it was an inevitability, pretty much, well, as far as I was concerned, because you put in the work and you've made all these great connections, and you've done it by honoring the work of people who have come before you, and not in a way like, oh, well, you're an older artist, kind of thing. Maybe you have something to teach me. You actually genuinely esteem so many different artists. And I think we see that in the number of different artists that want to work with you.
Yeah, I just think it all stems from the love of what I do. I'm so passionate about what I do, from the songwriting to the production to the live performance and the entertaining. I love entertaining people. I love watching their faces, and kind of taking them on a ride, in a
Mm-hmm.
live show. Make them laugh, make them cry, make them think, scare the hell out of them, and go home, like Dolly Parton used to say. So it's all just come from the deep love of music and the deep love of what I do, and anything else is a bonus. But it's the love of what I do that encourages me to work hard,
Mm-hmm.
and to keep chipping away. And I realise, and this Christmas EP really. I was kind of umming and ahhing. I didn't know whether I was going to do it this year. I'd written the songs during COVID, a lot of them, and I thought, oh, it'd be great to try and write a fresh,
Mm-hmm.
Christmas EP, because you don't hear a lot of new Christmas songs, or you certainly don't hear a lot of new Christmas songs that have got interesting ideas, or kind of interesting angles, from what the typical kind of thousands upon thousands of Christmas songs
Mm-hmm.
are about, and they're all about, come here, baby, and cuddle with me by the fire, by the roasted chestnuts and shit. Like that's the premise of almost every Christmas song.
Yeah.
But you don't hear Christmas songs like Cheapskate Christmas and Mistletoe and Don't Get Your Tinsel in a Tangle, and even First Christmas Without You. I thought that was an interesting idea. And I noticed, a lot of these titles, I've not seen written before. But First
Mm-hmm.
Christmas Without You, I've googled that. Like, titles aren't copyrighted, and
Mm-hmm.
I googled that to see if someone of course has written a song about that. But it's all about the angle and the attack that you actually, and the idea. I always say a song is only as good as its idea, and
Mm-hmm.
and that idea come from me walking outside. I was on the way to the gym, and it was pouring down rain because it was in the middle of La Nina in December of 2020. And I remember looking over at my grandma's garden where a little plaque is, and I thought, oh, this will be a first Christmas without you. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, hold the phone. And I wrote the chorus to the song there, and I think I wrote the rest of it in the gym, in between reps. You know,
Right.
it just kept kind of flowing out of me, and I'm quite a fickle editor, and so over time I've kind of edited things, and I suppose I tend to the initial thoughts of my ideas can sometimes be a little on the clever side, and then you've got to kind of get it to the point from being clever to conversational to something that you would say in a sentence. And so
Right.
it's that process of I'm always obsessing over just words and syllables and where I'm placing the stress, on we're placing the downbeat on the important words, and so I spend hours kind of mulling that over in my little brain while I'm, on the way into getting a sleep, or or in the gym, or out on a walk, or there's a lot of kind of, it's a series of very little steps,
Hmm.
to kind of work up into becoming a whole song, I find.
So when you say you're editing it, are you're editing it as you go? So just for example, the song you wrote in the gym, as you obviously weren't there recording it because it was between
Yeah.
reps, and there are other people around. So does that mean you were kind of going through it in your mind and editing as you went, so that by the time you got home, you actually had refined it already?
So I was kind of, because my process tends to be, particularly when I write songs on my own, I almost tend to write a lyric before I even pick up an instrument
Right.
and start kind of working something out. I have an idea of how it's going to sing and how it's going to phrase and what the feel is, but I kind of don't do that until afterwards. And I was in the gym, I was just jotting things down on my phone, and it was starting to take shape. Yeah, so that was kind of how that one came about. But I always find Eric McCusker and I have been working together, a bit, and he often quotes Steve Martin, who says precision creates movement.
Right.
And so I kind of believe that, because a song's got to sound, sometimes it takes a lot of work to make something sound effortless,
Mm.
and kind of just rolling off the tongue, and I find sometimes you'll have an initial thought or initial draft of the idea, and then it'll be, these, tiny kind of movements chipping away at this, and then you get the final song.
Hmm. And you were saying that you refine the lyrics from, starting out as clever, taking it through to conversational. Is that because you're mindful of the audience and wanting it to be accessible, and you don't want to have a play on words be too obscure for
Yeah,
a
well,
broad audience?
I think a clever line shouldn't draw attention to itself. To,
Right.
it shouldn't take away. It should still be something that someone would say. It
Mhm.
can't be too, but it has to kind of have, like, I find songs and lines and ideas, they've got to have an edge to them too. So if you sanitize them too much, you just lose any kind of appeal that original
Mhm.
idea has. So you've got to be careful of that too. And sometimes you can go too far and
Mhm.
kind of go, I think where I was originally was where it needed to be. And so sometimes you've got to
Right.
go through this whole process only to end up back to where you were anyway, and that's part of it too. So there's a it's very much like, my brain is kind of like a computer program. There's so many little kind of steps that I find involved in that songwriting process, but it's all such a worthwhile thing to go through to get that end song, because
Well,
I really
particularly when we
take
get songs
pride
like,
in.
sorry, I talked
Yeah.
over the top of you
Sorry,
then.
no, that's because I really take pride in what I do, and pride as a lyricist and songwriter, and it's just, it's what Eric and I have been doing, throughout the process of working with him as well.
Well, and it shows in these songs on the Gilly season, because they are clever, but without being obscure in
Yeah.
their cleverness, and cleverness can be sometimes obscure. And because I do want to keep bringing it back to the EP, Angus, because we are here to talk about it. So I do need to ask you, how do you feel about Mariah Carey's "All I Want for Christmas Is You"?
Oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever listened to that song properly, apart from ever being in Woolworths or something and
Yeah.
hearing it. So I can't really comment too much on that, but I tend to like things that are a little bit outside of the square, and I often play my good mate Kevin Bloody Wilson during over Christmas, and I listen to a Bob Dylan Christmas album because it irritates my family members. So I love playing that one. I've just got Paul Kelly raves about Phil Spector's Christmas album, and I just got a copy of that on vinyl. So I'm looking forward to having a listen to that myself. And hearing the wall of sound with Christmas tunes.
With Christmas tunes. And to talk about some other songs on the EP. So, we've talked about Cheapskate Christmas. Now, Mistletoe, you've mentioned, and that is a nice little play on Toey in a couple of different senses, and perhaps should be the office party anthem for 2022. What do you think?
Yeah. That one was a blast. I wrote that with a friend of mine called Randy Brooks, who wrote the big Christmas hit, Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer, which I've always loved because it's quite bent, but it's a song that, people are familiar with it over here, but it's a huge hit over in America, and it gets featured in Seinfeld and Simpsons, and and it's merchandised, in Hallmark cards and everything. It's really been such a big success. But that song come out in the late 70s, and so quite a macabre kind of dark comedy Christmas song would have been something pretty radical at that time. But I kind of got together with Randy. I had that title, Mistletoe. I often tend to write songs from a title because it's a really kind of, there's often the DNA of a cool idea contained within a title, and you've just kind of got to crack it open and actually see what's there if there's enough kind of substance in the idea to warrant becoming a whole song. And I had that idea of Mistletoe, and I just kind of threw it out to Randy, and he didn't really know what the word toey means, because obviously there's two meanings to the word toey, being a bit over it, being a bit mistletoe. I'm kind of done with this. If a small child is toey, they're ready to go home from the party. I remember Mum used to say, "Oh, we've got to go home, Dad. Angus is getting a bit toey." but then there's also the other meaning of being
the amorous version, yes.
a bit, playful and wanting to be, where I'm heading.
Yes. That's why I'm saying it could be an office party anthem.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of starts with the protagonist in this song being a little bit over Christmas, and then eventually when Zoe comes knocking on the door, in her elf suit, that his mood changes, and becomes the other meaning of Toey. So
and her name helpfully rhymes with Toey.
Toey, yeah, and very cleverly too. We also have a bottle of Moe, which is
that's right. Look, I actually meant to raise that because I thought, well done. You've managed to get a celebratory drink in there too.
Yeah, we used up all of the applicable rhymes for Zoe, Toey, Moe. Randy even had a suggestion for a line in there, the light's a little more glowy. And of course, glowy is not actually a word, but he's found, he's written a lot of novelty type songs, and one of his favorite things to do is come up with his own words, kind of coining his own words in songs. And so one of my favorite examples of this is in a Roger Miller song where he goes, "Roses are red, violets are purple, sugar is sweet, and so is maple syrup." And I just see that and I go, it's great, so we've got our own version of that, and there's also a bit of scatting in this song, and that's kind of been a way for me to release my inner Roger Miller as well.
And now another song is "Don't Get Your Tinsel in a Tangle," and I was thinking, why has that phrase not been used before? It's actually very handy when you want to say to someone, "Don't get your tinsel in a tangle." The person who's tinsel in a tangle with you on this song is Melinda Schneider. So how did that come about?
That song I wrote with my good friends Bill DeLuigi and Kirsty Manor, and we've written a lot of things together. And every time we write something, it's always a little different, always a little bit left of center, and kind of cool. Like we always just effortlessly gel. And we wrote this song as a male and female duet, and I could just picture Melinda doing this one with me. I've always loved her voice, and I've been a fan of her music ever since I was a kid, And so, the fact that she agreed to sing it with me, I was really honoured, and she really loved the song, and it's been wonderful working with her on this.
Yeah, and it works very, very well. Now, the last song to mention is Present Time, which is, I imagine, the companion piece to Cheapskate Christmas you were referring to earlier, because
Yeah.
there is some cheapskate gift giving in Present Time, including the mention of an avocado.
Yeah.
And it sounds like Pixie Jenkins had a great time doing the character
Oh,
voices on this.
he did. Pixie was a big part of the John Williamson family album. You hear songs like Camel Train to Yamba, and there's all the voices, when they're on the kind of gravel road, and Pixie was doing a lot of those voices, and of course Pixie and I have been touring together for a lot of this year, and so I said, "Oh, Pix, would you just be able to put some voices down, and just see what you come up with, because he just comes up with these things." And I thought, all right, and he sent me some amazing, things. I was just like, oh, I wish we could use that in the song, but kind of can't. It's a little rude, but trying to, because he talked all the way. There was bits all the way through this song, and so the challenge for me was to kind of cut it down into into kind of, just so that there was enough in there, but it also had to kind of continue throughout the song. Otherwise, if it was only kind of in certain spots, it'd seem a bit kind of random. So, but yeah, I was so glad to get him on that. Pixie, Stewie French and I actually wrote that song about 7 years ago, and
All
it's
right.
been lying around, and I kind of bring it out each Christmas at some of the Christmas shows I do, and I've always wanted to kind of record it, so it was great to be able to have Stewie played on that, obviously, and on all of the other songs too. So yeah, it was fantastic. Just excuse me a second. My dog is playing with a toy, and it's annoying the crap out of me.
Okay. Oh, poodles are the best
Lucy.
dogs.
This is Lucy. She was playing with her octopus toy, and it was annoying the crap out of me. So
Well, now she can answer some questions with you or about you, who knows? So you mentioned you had been doing Christmas shows in the past. Is that why you thought a Christmas EP would be a great idea? Because you were doing those shows, you thought, it'd be good to have my own material here.
yeah, I've always wanted to do my own Christmas project, and it really is a challenge come up with ideas, because Christmas songs have been done time and time and time again, and so I was kind of just thought, okay, let's just try it and see what we come up with. And I virtually started by just writing a whole list of titles and ideas down, and then one by one kind of cracking them open and going, oh yeah, there might be something in this, and then that's kind of how it took shape. And I wanted to do a bit of a light-hearted, almost borderline comedy, because I have written comedy songs, and I wouldn't class these songs as comedy songs because they're a slightly different form. They're more kind of novelty songs, but there are kind of chuckle lines in some of the songs too. Um, but I yeah, just wanted some songs that had a bit of an Aussie flavour, but didn't kind of hit you over the head with the Santa on the surfboard and all of that. Songs that, because that was the hard thing too. I was writing some of these songs with friends of mine that live in America, and one of them offered up an idea for a song called something like the Silly Sweater Season or something for an idea, and I was like, oh yeah, that's good, but we actually don't wear sweaters in December
Yeah.
for Christmas. So there was some things, and even when Randy Brooks and I wrote Mistletoe, I kind of had to explain to him the meaning of that word, because it's not really a word that they kind of use. So it was kind of fun, navigating, trying to be a little bit neutral with some of the Christmas ideas too. But I just kind of wanted to capture what my Christmas upbringing was like, and that's the
Right.
point of difference. And I always say, as a songwriter, your point of difference is your own worldview and your own experiences. Um, there's often other people that have those experiences too, and so by being specific, you can be quite universal,
Yeah.
because people go, oh, that's me as well. So a recent example, there's a line in First Christmas Without You called "The Parson's Nose Will Have to Go to the Dogs," because and it was putting a bit of humour into a poignant, quite a sad song. But I just recently had a lady, Kaz Johnson, review the album, and she said that that was the same. We felt that too, because
Mhm.
when my grandma passed, we chucked the parson's nose to the dog because she was the only one that ate the parson's nose. So
Yeah.
it's just an example of using that specific to get to the universal. So that's what I was trying to do, drawing on my own experiences. And Christmas to me was always, oh, my present's bigger than yours, and yours is bigger than mine. And how come I got I wanted a guitar, but you got me a pair of PJs,
Yeah.
like, so
And
I
an
was
avocado.
yeah, and an avocado, thanks to Pixie. So I was trying to capture that gamut of emotions. The fun, the squabbling, the pathos, the stress. Um, all of those emotions that Christmas brings. Within these songs.
And I think you do that very successfully. So I do hope people have it playing on their Christmas playlists, or just on their stereo on Christmas Day. But to move away from the Gilly season and just to talk about some of your other work, recently you produced TC Cassidy's album Traveling Heart, and you were actually the whole reason why the album existed, because she told me the story about how you came up to her in the gym one day and basically said, "You're TC Cassidy," and then you said to her later, "You need to make some new music." So that must have been hugely gratifying to see all of that come together.
Yeah, it really is. And I actually saw her, how it came about. I saw her at a Johnny Cash concert, it's Daniel
Mm.
Thompson's Johnny Cash show at the Glass House. And I said, "So what have you been up to?" She said, "Oh, I'm really trying to write some songs, get back into songwriting, but I kind of don't know where to start. And I'm kind of a little stuck." And I said, "Oh, I'll write something with you, and she's like, "Really, would you?" And then I come up with the idea for the first single, "Ain't Too Late to Start Again." I wrote the chorus in the shower, and and I sent her a text and I said, "Oh, I think I've got an idea for a song which would be a good comeback single for you." And that's kind of how it started. It was more, I kind of got that idea and I thought, this could be something TC could do. And I was excited about bringing TC, the prospect of bringing TC Cassidy back, because I used to have a radio show that I did locally when I was 14. I started doing that, and I used to play her songs. So, and then I kind of put two and two together when I saw her at the gym, and I knew. I knew her from, being around in Port Macquarie, and so yeah, that was how that project came to be, and I'm very proud of her. Like it's a very daunting task, 30 years later
Mm.
to go, "Hey, I'm going to do a comeback,"
Yeah.
and put out a whole album. But it was a wonderful process, working with her on those, writing the songs. I wrote a couple with her, and then the rest I wrote two on my own, and a few with some of my usual collaborators. My long suffering collaborators. So it was great to be able to capture who she is, and kind of I'd pick up on different things that she'd say and things that she'd tell me about her life, and put that into the songs, because I thought, well, we could have just chosen from a pool of all of these random songs, and chosen from that, but I thought, no, I really would like to. She's the one selling the songs. The songs need to virtually capture who she is. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's how we come about with that.
And they do sound very much like they're from her heart, to imagine her. But also, Angus, in about 2 minutes' time, you're going to be in complete darkness because it's the lights falling.
On the light.
No, that's okay. I'll let you go anyway, because I've had you talking for quite a while. But I will say people can see you and Pixie Jenkins at the Tamworth Country Music Festival if they would like to hear some of the that were edited out of the Gilly season. Maybe Pixie can oblige some of the rude bits, as you said.
That's good.
But in the meantime, yeah, it's a terrific EP. I'm so enjoying it, and we're talking in mid-November, and it's a bit earlier than I would usually listen to festive music. But you've got me in the festive spirit.
Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate that. It's been a blast. And yeah, Pixie and I will be at Tamworth. We've got our only festival show on the Monday, the 16th at 3 p.m. at the Tamworth Services Club. So tickets are on sale for that now. And yeah, we can't wait. We're going to have our usual Christmas here. We always have quite a small gathering because, like a lot of families have a large gathering, and I get quite envious, but we do things differently. We have quite a small family gathering because most of them are dead. So
well, and you've had a rough couple of
you've got
years
to make do, you know.
yeah, you've had a rough couple of years losing grandmas. So I hope
Yeah.
your own songs can provide some entertainment on Christmas Day.
We've got Grandpa. He'll be coming around. He's our only hope now to get a telegram from Prince Charles. So he's got to hang in there. You know, he's got to make the 100 now.
Well, there you go. Maybe you could write a song about that when it happens too.
That's it.
Well, Angus, it's been so good to talk to you. No doubt I will talk to you again at some stage.
You too, Sophie. It's been a blast.
Thanks.